The night was quiet, except for the sound of rain tapping gently against the window. Sarah sat alone in her room, staring at the old photograph in her hands. It was of her and Daniel, laughing, carefree, and lost in a moment that now felt like it belonged to another lifetime. She could still hear his voice in her mind, that soft whisper he had made the night he left for the city. "Wait for me, Sarah. Just a little while. I'll come back for you. That's my promise." It had been 3 years since those words were spoken. 3 long years filled with unanswered letters, fading phone calls, and a silence that grew heavier with every passing season. Sarah tried to move on. She tried to bury the promise in the corners of her heart, but promises have a way of lingering, like ghosts that refuse to be forgotten. Daniel had been everything to her. Her childhood friend, her first love, her dream of forever. She had believed in him, in them, more than she believed in anything else. But belief can only survive so long against silence. That evening, as the rain fell harder, Sarah whispered to herself, "Why didn't you keep your promise, Daniel? Why did you leave me waiting?" She pressed the photograph to her chest and closed her eyes, letting the weight of the unanswered years crush her. For deep down, she knew. The most painful goodbyes are the ones where no words are spoken. And the cruelest heartbreak of all, is a promise never kept. The days after the rainstorm blurred into one another. Sarah went about her life, teaching at the small school in her village, tending to her mother's garden, and writing in the journal she once shared with Daniel. But no matter how hard she tried, every quiet evening ended the same way, with her staring at the photograph, waiting for answers that never came. Then one morning, while walking through the marketplace, she overheard 2 men talking near the post office. Daniel Carter, wasn't it? Such a shame. He left town years ago, never came back. Heard something happened to him in the city. Sarah froze. Her heart pounded as she turned toward them. "What did you say?" she asked, her voice trembling. The men looked at her in surprise, then shifted uncomfortably. "Aw, miss. I didn't mean to upset you. Just rumors, you know. Some say he got into trouble. Some say he fell sick. But no one really knows." Her legs weakened beneath her, and she clutched her shawl tighter. Trouble? Sick? For 3 years, she had built every day on the hope that Daniel was simply delayed, that life, somehow, had kept him away. But the thought that something darker had happened shattered her. That night, Sarah searched through her old letters. The last one Daniel had written was short, hurried, unlike his usual heartfelt notes. "Things are harder here than I imagined. But trust me, Sarah, I'll fix it all. I'll come back. I promise." She read those words again and again, her tears staining the page. Why had he sounded so desperate? What was he hiding? Desperate for answers, Sarah decided to leave the village for the first time in her life. She packed a small bag, tucked the old photograph inside, and boarded a train to the city Daniel had gone to 3 years ago. As the train pulled away, she whispered into the night, "Daniel, wherever you are, I'll find the truth. I need to know why you broke your promise." What she didn't know was that the truth waiting for her in the city was far more painful than she had ever imagined. The city was nothing like Sarah's quiet village. Tall buildings loomed above her, the streets were alive with hurried footsteps, and the air was filled with noise that pressed against her chest. She clutched Daniel's photograph tightly, as if it could guide her. Her first stop was the address written on his last letter. A small, crumbling apartment building stood at the edge of a crowded street. The walls were faded, the windows dusty, and it felt like a place that held secrets in its silence. She asked the caretaker about him. The old man's eyes softened when he heard the name. "Daniel Carter, yes, I remember. Lived here for a short while. Good boy, always polite. But he left suddenly. One night, he was gone. Never said goodbye. Sarah's heart sank. Do you know where he went? Why he left? The caretaker shook his head. I only know he looked troubled, sick even. He coughed a lot. Spent nights staring out that window like the weight of the world was on his shoulders. Sick. The word pierced Sarah like a knife. She had imagined betrayal, another life, even another woman, but sickness was a shadow she hadn't expected. Determined, she continued asking around. Days passed. She followed every faint trail, every whisper of his name. And then, one evening, she found herself standing at the gate of a quiet church. Inside, a kind priest listened to her story. His face grew solemn at the mention of Daniel. My child, he said gently, Daniel used to come here often. He prayed more for you than for himself. He was fighting something he didn't want you to bear. When he realized his illness was worsening, he asked me to keep a letter safe, in case you ever came. Sarah's breath caught. Her trembling hands reached for the envelope the priest pulled from his drawer. The handwriting was his. Shaky, but still his. With tears blurring her vision, she opened it. My dearest Sarah, if you are reading this, then I failed to keep the promise I made. Not because I didn't love you, but because I loved you too much to let you waste your life waiting for a man who might not have a future. I was sick, Sarah. I didn't want you to see me fade. I wanted your memories of me to be strong, not broken. Forgive me for walking away in silence. Forgive me for the promise I never kept. But know this, loving you was the only truth I ever lived for. Forever yours, Daniel. The paper slipped from Sarah's hands as sobs shook her body. The promise he broke was not born from betrayal, but from love too heavy for him to carry. And in that church, with the candlelight flickering against her tears, Sarah realized the cruelest truth of all: some promises are not broken out of lies. Some are broken out of love. The letter never left Sarah's hands. She carried it with her as she walked through the city streets, her tears falling with every step. Daniel's words echoed in her mind, forgive me for the promise I never kept. At first, she felt anger. Why hadn't he trusted her? Why had he chosen to fight alone when she would have carried his pain without hesitation? But anger soon gave way to sorrow, and sorrow to an aching tenderness. She returned to the church often in the following days. The priest would watch her sit in silence, the letter pressed against her chest, as though holding it kept Daniel close. Sometimes, she would whisper into the quiet air, you kept your love, Daniel, but you didn't keep your promise. One evening, she wandered to the edge of the sea, a place Daniel had once dreamed of taking her. He used to talk about it when they lay beneath the stars in their village. One day, Sarah, we'll stand by the ocean together. Promise me you'll come with me. Now, standing there alone, she let the waves wash over her feet. She closed her eyes and imagined him beside her, laughing, holding her hand, keeping the promise he had once made so easily. But when she opened her eyes, only the horizon stared back. Slowly, Sarah began to understand. Daniel hadn't broken his promise because he stopped loving her, he had broken it because he thought love meant protecting her from pain. He had carried his suffering in silence, never realizing that by shutting her out, he had hurt her more deeply than the truth ever could. Back in her village, Sarah resumed her life, but she was no longer the same. She smiled less, spoke less, and carried a quiet ache in her heart. She wore no bitterness, only a fragile gentleness, as if the world had carved sorrow into her soul. Some nights, she still pressed the photograph to her chest and whispered, I would have chosen you, Daniel. Even in your sickness. Even in your fading. I would have chosen you. But the echo of her words was the only answer she ever received. And so, Sarah lived with the memory of a love unfinished, a promise never kept. Not broken by betrayal, but broken by silence, by fear, by time. A love story that ended not with goodbye, but with absence. Years slipped quietly through Sarah's life, like pages torn from a book. She grew older, but her heart remained tethered to the memory of Daniel. People around her often said, "Time heals all wounds," but Sarah knew the truth: time does not heal, it only teaches you how to live with the ache. She became known in her village as a woman of kindness, someone who carried warmth in her smile yet sadness in her eyes. Children adored her, neighbors respected her, but no one ever truly knew the weight she carried, the weight of a promise unfulfilled. Every year, on the day Daniel had left for the city, Sarah would return to the sea. She would stand where the waves touched the shore and read his last letter aloud, her voice trembling, as if hoping the wind might carry her words to him somehow. One evening, much older now, Sarah sat by the shore with the letter in her lap. The sun was sinking, painting the sky in soft shades of gold and crimson. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Daniel, I forgive you." For the first time in years, the tears that fell were not heavy with bitterness, but light with release. She finally understood that love, even when unfinished, could still be eternal. That sometimes promises are broken not out of betrayal, but because life itself is fragile, unpredictable, and cruel. As the waves kissed her feet, Sarah smiled faintly. She no longer waited for Daniel to return, for she carried him within her heart. The love they shared, though brief, though shadowed by silence, had shaped her entire life. When she rose to leave, she pressed the letter to her lips one last time and let the wind take it. The paper danced across the sea until it disappeared beyond the horizon. And with that, Sarah finally let go, not of Daniel, not of love, but of the pain of a promise never kept. Because some loves are not meant to last a lifetime. Some are meant to teach us what it means to love at all.